Hello, True Health Seeker. I have a very exciting announcement. I have spent over a year, I've spent about 14 months collecting all of my information that I use with my clients for ending anxiety, and I created an online program. I'm very excited about it. We just launched it. And for you, for free, I have a webinar where I teach you 2 powerful mind tricks for removing anxiety, ending worry, and controlling fear so it stops controlling you and your life. In my free webinar, you will learn what causes anxiety and how to stop it, the science behind the mind-body connection, overcoming fear of public speaking, getting unstuck, ending that fear of things not working out, ending procrastination and overwhelm, and feeling excited, grounded, and calm instead of fear and worry. I have so much to teach you in my free webinar, and I'm really excited for you to come check it out. Go to freeyouranxiety.com/webinar. That's freeyouranxiety.com/webinar, or look in the show notes of today's podcast and you'll see the link there so you can jump into the webinar and learn all these wonderful, powerful tools that will end your anxiety and create excitement and happiness instead. Go to freeyouranxiety.com/webinar and sign up now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next live webinar. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 225. Today we are in for such a treat. You know, I love it when I have naturopaths on the show. They are my favorite guests. They're the icing on the cake. Everyone else is the cake, but they're the icing. Dr. Ben Lynch is an amazing doctor, and naturopath, and scientist and author of the book Dirty Genes. Now, I was just talking to Robin Openshaw. I was actually on her show, and she's going to be publishing that interview later this month. And she was saying that I needed to have you on my show. So I'm just so thrilled that you're here today to teach us about the MTHFR and methylation defects and how we can focus on improving our health so that we can improve the health of how our body works with the gene process and methylation, all these things that go way over my head, but I know are really, really important for us to understand. So, Dr. Ben Lynch, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Ashley. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And when my naturopath, Dr. Megan, found out that you were going to come on the show, she texted me and she's like, "Hey, he's really awesome. You should totally have him on the show." I was like, "I know, right?"
Nice.
So I got a
Nice.
lot of people telling me you should be on the show, which is great. Robin Openshaw, who is the Green Smoothie Girl, she loves your book. She gives it rave reviews, and she says it's absolutely the best book to read to understand how to healthfully methylate. Before we get into all of that awesome and complex science, I'd love for you to start by sharing your story, both personally and professionally. What led you towards cellular and molecular biology, and then to becoming a naturopath, and then wanting to specialize in helping us with this methylation dysfunction?
I mean, who wakes up one morning and says they want to specialize in cell molecular biology, right? I mean, probably not too many people. So that was a kind of a chain of events right there. But I think I was 17 years old when I was introduced to biochemistry, maybe even 16, during high school. And we actually had a class. It was biochemistry, and it was the best class I ever had. And in terms of being woken up to how the body works at such a molecular level, and it showed me that their cells were alive and they did things, and it was really cool. So I became fascinated at that point. And then at the UW, I was University of Washington. I was like, okay, well, what do I need to do to become pre-med and utilize more biochemistry? And it was cellular molecular biology was what I completed most of my classes for. So I just said, all right, well, that'll be the degree. It was either that or biochem. And if I were to go back, I probably would have biochem. But then I realized that standard medicine, the conventional route, was not where I wanted to go. I love nutritional biochemistry, and I wanted to dive in more. And I realized early, thankfully, that I was not going to get that at a conventional medical school. And so when I traveled abroad, I got really sick in India. And when I was in India, I was introduced to a very weird form of medicine where they looked at my tongue and felt my pulse, and that was it. And then they gave me some weird prescription of things I still don't know to this day what they are. And I felt amazingly better after about 40 minutes. And prior, I was very, very ill. And so that introduced me to, wow, there are some natural things that I could do to really support my body. And I sought out more, and that led to Bastyr. And so Bastyr University, I studied naturopathic medicine, and I was fascinated with that. And I said, okay, that's great, but it wasn't really explaining enough. Patients still came in with symptoms, and I felt that we were just giving supplements instead of meds, which was nice, but it wasn't enough. I felt that there was something else, and that something else was environmental medicine. It was how the environment was making us sick. The chemicals and food for one person could make them feel great. Another person would make them feel ill. And while I was studying that, I realized that when I was detoxing certain patients, uh, the protocols I was using, sauna and heavy metal chelators and so on, some patients did very, very well and some didn't. And so that led me to say, well, is there a genetic component to that? And there ended up being a genetic component. And but it was what really tipped me off to getting full bore in what I'm doing today, which is epigenetics, which is basically the stuff that's around our genes, which trigger them to turn on and off and get to work. That was a Nova show called The Tale of Two Mice. And when I saw that, I was sold. I mean, here you are having mice that are genetically susceptible to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cancer. I mean, three of the major conditions we're facing today. And these mice, they're genetically susceptible to them. And the only intervention that was provided by the researcher was nutrition, and they didn't get it. I was like, wow, okay, I want to do more. And so that's what I've been doing.
Oh, I love it. I first heard about epigenetics from Dr. Joel Wallach. He actually wrote a book called Epigenetics, and the understanding that through nutrition we're supporting the genes to be healthy, and this whole idea that if you're positive for the BRCA gene you need to have your breasts cut off just seems very medieval and archaic. And then when you dive into understanding a bit more about the BRCA gene, you realize that it actually has a protective mechanism, and so if you don't nourish the body, it's kind of really going back to the really old time naturopathic fundamentals. Like, give the body nutrient dense foods and remove toxins and avoid toxic exposure, and your body's going to flourish. And now, with you understanding the gene processes and epigenetics, you can just see it. You can see science unfolding on a whole deeper level. You can see it occurring where, yeah, that healing through nutrition is the way to go, because you can prove it within the genes. Am I on the right path?
You are. I mean, you have to understand that it's very simply, I say it all the time, is genes do work. And our genes require tools, just like everyone requires tools. I mean, you and I have microphones and computers and wires all over the place in order to do this podcast, and you're listening to this podcast either on your phone or in the car or where have you, and that's tools to listen to this interview. So our genes need the same tools, and the tools, most of them, come from the food that we eat. And so if if we are providing our bodies with healthful, wholesome food, our genes get the tools that they can use to function, i.e., protein, carbohydrates, fats, and then they also need certain constituents from food, and then they also need vitamins and minerals. I mean, and we need water and air. So that's the basic building blocks, and then we need sunlight. I mean, sunlight is huge, and we need circadian rhythm, darkness to turn on our genes to support our deep sleep, and we need light to stimulate us to wake up in the morning and tell the melatonin to go away and the cortisol to start getting pumped out. And when we see something that's dangerous, we have neurotransmitters that tell us, "Oh my God, that looks scary," and it pumps us full of hormones and neurotransmitters to get us out of there super fast. So, our genes are there to perform for us. And in order to do so, we have to give them those tools. And actually, it's really simple. It's nutrition, and it's breathing properly, and it's hydration, and it's avoidance of stuff that makes them do excessive work. like chemicals in the environment, or not seeing any tigers or stressors, but we are persistently, chronically stressed from Wi-Fi signals all day, all night, and also polluted air. I mean, we breathe 11,000 liters of
Mm.
air every 24 hours. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's insane. So if you're every breath that you're breathing in, are you breathing in just clean air, or are you sucking down car exhaust and formaldehydes and, you know, who knows what else? So and that requires work. It doesn't, you think that you take a breath in and you're getting air and all the chemicals and the weird smells and the odd perfumes that people get, you get headaches from. Well, why do you think you get a headache from the perfumes? Do you think you just have a weird headache? No, your genes responded to those chemicals and gave you that headache because your blood vessels constricted, or they couldn't, or they excessively dilated, or they reduced the amount of oxygen that could be burning because your mitochondria got toxic from whatever you took a whiff of. Now your mitochondria can't burn that oxygen to produce energy in your brain. So you had like a little mitochondrial death for the moment in your brain,
Mm.
and now you got a headache. So, it's every action that we do, every single one is doing two things. One, it's either supporting your genes and helping them do their job, or two, it's dirtying them up and not letting them do their job. And if you have a dirty gene, you have a symptom. And if you keep doing it, you get a disease. And if you keep doing it, you get multiple diseases. And now you're on a chronic disease path. And it boils down to, very simply, if you're living a life where, say, 60 to 70% of your actions, let's say 70% of your actions are conducive towards supporting your genes and giving the tools they need, and 30% is conducive towards dirtying them up, drinking alcohol, staying up late, partying, working hard, and so on, which we're going to do, and that's part of life, then you'll bounce back. But if you have that ratio backwards, where you're doing 30% of the time that you're getting good sleep and proper healthy food and good community, and you're actually, all that, then, but 70% of your actions are not good. You hate your job. You can't stand your significant other. Your kids are driving you bonkers. You live in a home that's right next to the freeway or is full of carpet, and you've got pressboard furniture all over the place, and you're eating fast food, which you're microwaving constantly, and you're surrounded by Wi-Fi or Bluetooth all day. So, and you sit on your butt watching TV eating bonbons. I mean, you're going to be in trouble.
You brought up so many points I want to unpack. I love that you said we breathe in 11,000 tons or 11,000 liters of air a day.
Leaders.
Liters of air a day. I was in the middle of writing as you said it, and I was like, what did he say? Liters. And for those who are not, those who are American, they may not know what a liter is, but like those big bottles of Coke or 2 liter bottles of Coke. And so, that's just a huge amount when you think about how much we breathe. I've heard that from some doctors that say it's more important to look at your air quality than it is to even look at your food quality, because you eat 3 times a day, but you breathe 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you bring that up, especially with the fires that we had here over the summer and the fall in the Pacific Northwest and also down into California. People are now having tons of health issues, me included, having breathed in for several weeks all that toxic smoke. And we don't
Yes.
realize that it was toxic because we think, oh, like campfires are fine or whatever. Dr. Klinghardt was recently on the show, and he said that when you burn these types of trees, these trees spent years absorbing the heavy metals from our pollution, and then you burn them all off, you're now getting exposed to years of pollution at once, years of heavy metals at once. And so people are now having a spike in their heavy metal toxicity. So thinking about air purifiers, do you have a particular favorite brand of air purifier that people should consider getting for their home and office?
There are a number of good air purifiers, I believe. There's IQ Air, there's Allen Air, ALEN, that I have. There's one's about 3 feet away from me, but it's not turned on. And there's another one that's like a square cube that I can't remember their name of it, that a lot of environmental docs like a lot, and I can't remember. Um, But you just want to look at to make sure, with air purifiers, they have engines. And when you buy them, any electronic that you turn on, like say you buy a space heater, or a computer or an air purifier, it doesn't matter. If there's a motor, plug it in and turn it on outside, not in your home, because nowadays everything's wrapped in plastic. And
Mm.
the second you turn that on, there's so many volatile organic compounds that are being emitted like crazy. Even in a brand new air purifier, you think, oh, I'm going to have clean air. Well, it's off gassing. So plug it in outside and let it run. And I got a space heater because I'm in a rental home, and at the moment while my office is being remodeled in our home, and it's a great home because all the floors are either made out of stone or wood or linoleum. There's no carpet, but there's basically also no insulation, and so the room I'm also in is like single pane windows and a very high ceiling, so it's cold. So I bought this space heater, and it does a great job, great reviews. But I plugged it in, and I said, I'm putting this outside. And it was the middle of winter, and I was like, God, I'm wasting energy, but I don't care because it reeked. So air purifiers or not, put them outside when you plug them in. But Alan, to answer your question, Alan Air and IQ Air are good, but they do stink when they're new.
Got it. That's really good to consider that anytime we buy a new electronic, we should run it outside for a day and let it off gas. Now you've bashed carpets a few times, and I'm
Mm.
sitting here with a nice cozy carpet in between my toes as I sit here in my office, kind of worrying. Why should we avoid carpets?
They're sponges. I mean,
Mm.
if you think of your stomach lining, they say if you roll out your small intestine, it's like the size of a tennis court, which is
Mhm.
kind of crazy,
Mhm.
with all the folds that it has in there. If you totally flatten it out. So carpet's kind of the same way. You have a hardwood floor, and you have one surface to clean. There's no verticalness to it at all, right? It's just flat, and you can easily scrub it clean. It's one surface. Carpet, especially if it's a deep carpet, you have all these vertical things that are like little antenna holding dirt. And so you vacuum it out, and that's great. But carpets also have a lot of fire retardants. They have a lot of other odd compounds, and say, okay, well, you know that, so you get wool, but they still trap dust. They trap humidity, so they can get mold. Dust mites love them. It's just when you rip out carpets from your house. I don't know if you've ever done that, but if you walk into a home that's carpeted, it has this heavier feel to it. And if you walk into a home that's has none, the air feels lighter. And if you've ripped out your carpet and you install hardwood, you'll know what I mean. The air just feels lighter. And I had a buddy of mine, Mike Mutzel, who's got a great uh, YouTube channel where his carpet was in a room, and he ripped it out, and he noticed a world of difference.
Mm. I have one of those Dysons where you can see it fill with the dust and the
Yes.
everything,
Hmm.
and it scares me how fast. I mean, no matter how much I vacuum, it fills so fast. We have one cat, and we've got a toddler and my husband and myself, and somehow we managed to create that much dander and dust mites and hair and fur, to fill it several times as I just go in the more common areas with the vacuum, and I immediately run out to our garbage outside and dump it out because I know what's living in it. It's the dust mites. I want to get them out of the house. Um, but yeah, if we can, you're saying the best thing to do is to go carpetless in the healthiest way possible, because that's the kind of environmental sponge that otherwise we're breathing in all that stuff all day long.
Yeah, when you step on the carpet, you kick it up too, right? And it's got all sorts of weird fibers made out of who knows what,
Mm-hmm.
in them. So, in our remodel, my boys are asking for carpets in the room because who wants to wake up to a cold floor? So I said, well, because living here in Seattle, it's it's cold in the winter, even if your house is, warm. But I said, well, just get a rug, that you can shake out and, vacuum. But it's a rug, if you're going to have carpets, at least get a rug that you can remove, right? So that's,
Mm-hmm.
I, and who was the brilliant person who decided to bring gas into the home? I mean, gas is something that should be outside. So if you're cooking with a gas stove because you think it cooks better, well, I'm telling you that the new induction type electric cooktops are amazing. But the gas is an issue. But the electric induction cooktops can also be an issue because they have a layer on them from manufacturing called acreolin. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But regardless, if you're cooking, you need to be using your hood. You have to be using the exhaust hood, 100%. I don't care if it's noisy. You turn that thing on because the smoke points you're getting from oils, you're getting formaldehydes, you're getting
Mm.
aldehydes, and these things are wreaking havoc upon your genes and creating a huge body burden. So here's people that they're listening to all these summits, they're reading all these books, and they're getting committed and they're excited, and now they're in their kitchen cooking, and they don't feel good even though they're eating better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, are they using high smoke point oils, like avocado oil or ghee, so they're not getting more aldehydes and toxic oils, or are they exposing themselves to more formaldehyde and carbon monoxide fumes and so on?
Where does the formaldehyde come from?
Gas.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So I did a Facebook Live with a gentleman who Healthy Exposures is his website, I believe. Healthy Exposures, and he has all these fancy uh, tools. And so we went actually to one of my teammates' house, and she does a lot of content for our business. And we went because she had a gas stove because I don't, and we turned on her gas oven, and we just turned it on, and the the formaldehyde went from like 100 parts per million to like 80,000 in seconds.
Oh my gosh.
And it was the instrument started blaring alarms and blinking yellow lights, and I was like, okay, that's it. And that was just the oven. And then the stove, you turn on this pilot light and kick it over, and that will do the same thing. So it's they're bad. They're bad.
So if those listeners who have I have a gas stove and I thought I was doing such a good thing because in macrobiotic cooking you're supposed to cook with gas because the energy of gas is natural, yada yada. And
Hmm.
but this is I'm also renting a great home. I love where we live, and so we got what we got.
Right.
um, but here we have a gas stove, and I don't always turn on the hood before I kick on the oven, and I often smell gas. Like I turn on the oven and I get a whiff of gas, so I'm breathing
Right.
it in. What does formaldehyde do to us if we have that level of exposure every day as we're cooking?
I don't remember the biochemistry of formaldehyde, and it's something I keep wanting to evaluate. But it has to go through these detoxification routes in your body. It has to go through certain genes like cytochrome P450s, which are a huge gun in our detoxification arsenal.
Mm.
And so they really work hard. But the thing is, a lot of people are taking things like antacids, which are actually inhibiting their cytochrome P450s. And how many people are taking antacids actually? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Everyone. It's so
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So it's inhibiting their primary detoxification system. And then you've got people loading up on Tylenol as well for various reasons. And that's also inhibiting it. And it's depleting their body's primary antioxidant at the same time, which is glutathione. So, all these things which you think are over the counter and they're fine to take because you have a symptom and you're trying to get rid of that symptom. Well, you need to start saying, well, next time I have reflux, that's a sign that there's something going on with my digestion. I need to fix it. I'm not shutting it up. And if I get a headache or if I'm in pain, I need to start paying attention to that instead of shutting it up. Because what standard conventional medicine goes through and does very well is it shuts up the body. It tells it
Mm-hmm.
to shut up. It's force. And Dr. Bisorno said it very well. You look at naturopathic medicine, the body is inherently brilliant, and it is, and we nurture it to help the patient get over those symptoms because the body is creating those symptoms from whatever reason, and we need to support it through that. Whereas conventional medicine uses force to turn off those enzyme systems, which are creating the symptoms, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a huge, massive distinction there. So I urge you to just turn on your hood and then light your pilot stove, let the pilot light, and then you can also call companies to come and refine the burn of your stove to make sure it ignites cleanly and quickly, and it's burning as cleanly as possible. But I will tell you, I called Sears a few times, not to rip on them, but just to let you know, because every time I lit our stove, I would smell it too every time. And so I called them over. Can you please check this? And they're like, oh, it's fine. It's not fine. It's not. It doesn't. The flame doesn't mean look good. And you tell me it's fine. It's not fine. So anyway, I don't know how you measure that, but maybe there is some resource where people can tap into to find to make sure they can fine tune their gas stoves. I know people love it. Just use your hood.
And on the induction top, does that layer of that stuff that kind of comes from the factory, does that burn off over time, or after a few months or years of having that stove, are they still getting that chemical exposure?
That's a good question. I don't know. When I was doing research, so I created a course called the Dirty Genes course, which guides people through the fundamentals of life. Because people get their genetic reports and they find out they have these certain genes like MTHFR or COMT or yada yada, and the first thing they do is they try to say, how do I fix that, right? How do I fix that genetic problem? And they forget all the fundamentals of life that and that they forget that their genes do work and that they provide their genes like less exhaust from the gas and less uh, particulate from carpets and so on, then their genes, even if they're born dirty, like with a slower MTHFR or what have you, they'll still be fine. So I would say that in the Dirty Genes course, I talk about how acrolein from is present in these electric burners, but I did not research the duration of that. And then it makes you wonder also with pots and pans, Teflon coating
Mm-hmm.
we know now, right, is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, this stuff's everywhere.
I love that you brought up the Teflon pan. Back, oh, I don't know, 2005.
Hmm.
I met a woman. I was taking courses in California to become a trainer of neurolinguistic programming, and one of the classmates she sold a type of cookware. It's a network marketing company called Salad Masters. And so I came to her studio. She had like a big warehouse, and she gave these presentations where she would cook with her cookware, which was 100% surgical stainless steel. There's nothing else in it. There's no, aluminum layers or anything. And then she'd cook with a variety of other um she had like a Teflon, like the Pyrex. So she had the glass one that you can see. She had the Teflon. She had the copper pan. She had a stainless steel that had an aluminum as one of the layers. And she boiled water in all of them, and then she put a little pinch of baking soda in each one. I don't know why that makes it work, but then she cooled off the water, and then you would taste with a little spoon. You'd go about tasting each one, and you could taste the lead, you were chewing on a pencil. You could taste the lead from the Pyrex, the glass one, because that's how they make the glass cookware not break, is that there's lead in it. From the copper pan, you could taste the copper. From the stainless steel with aluminum, you could clearly taste aluminum. And I mean, you don't even want to taste the one from the Teflon. She didn't even let you, because she goes, this Teflon pans, um she had this whole video from 60 minutes, like, I don't know, like 15 years ago. It was a really old video, but it talks about how these people would have their parrots die in their
Hmm.
home if they were
Hmm.
cooking bacon with a Teflon pan, and that people were getting flu-like symptoms when they cooked with Teflon, thinking that they had the flu, but they didn't. And it was because the Teflon off-gassing was causing them to be so sick. And now I guess you could explain to us why is it that just cooking with Teflon does that to the body?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Teflon. I don't know the science behind that, but I know that again, there's genes that have to process the stuff that's coming off of there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and those genes, I guess maybe in parrots that they don't have those genes at all and they can't process it, or maybe they're really slow. So, different species of animals have slightly different speeds of genes and slightly different types of genes as well, even though we're very similar to many animals. But for example, they did for folic acid, we all know folic acid, and folic acid, you give that to rats and they process the folic acid very well in their body, and you give it to humans and we don't process it very well at all. But yet now we have folic acid everywhere in our foods and vitamins, and the government did a very like quick research and they said, oh look, it works on rats, let's put it now on humans. And now there's research showing that maybe that wasn't such a good idea, because in humans the genes that process the folic acid are really really slow compared to the rat. So we should probably not have done that. And but they did. So yeah.
So when people are eating all these fortified foods, and their genes are processing it very slowly, what happens? Is there like a backup in the system and the body gets like over toxic just from the backup? Like what do we need to be worried about?
Well, that's that we need to be worried about a lot, because we need folate. We need folate for a lot of things. We need folate for our white blood cells to fight infections. We need folate for our red blood cells so we can breathe. We need folate for our platelets so we can clot. And we need folate for our neurotransmitters so we can think. And we need folate for making our DNA bases so we can repair our DNA when it gets chemicals or invaded into our system. And we need to repair these things. Or when kids are growing, they need folate so they can grow. And we need folate for our digestive system because our gut lining repairs every 7 days. The whole gut lining is new. And our skin, we need folate for our skin because we're creating skin cells all the time. So, we need folate for many, many things. And let me give you this example. So, is it a good idea to sit in your garage with, you can have your garage door open, but is it okay to sit in your garage with your car idling?
No.
No. You know that, right?
Mhm.
Why? Why is that bad?
Because even if the grocery store is open, you're still going to be breathing in more exhaust, and no, we shouldn't be breathing in any exhaust.
Right. Do you know why? Do you know why the exhaust can kill you?
Well, I understand that it's gonna suffocate you, it's gonna, like, starve you of oxygen, but also I know that there's, like, a lot of chemicals that we wouldn't wanna
Yeah.
be breathing in.
Yeah, but what you said there was what I was looking for. It'll starve you of oxygen. Do you know how it'll starve you of oxygen?
No, I don't.
Okay, so and I'm bringing this up because this is similar, because folic acid starves us of what our body wants of good folate. So folic acid starves us of folate. I say that 10 times fast.
Really?
Yes. So here's the example. Here's the carbon monoxide. So what happens when you are around and you're outside walking, or maybe you're exercising? You should never exercise where there's traffic or a lot of cars, because what happens is you have hemoglobin, and hemoglobin carry four oxygen for us. For every hemoglobin, they will bind four particles of oxygen and carry them and deliver them where it's needed. And the hemoglobin will release the oxygen where there's high concentration carbon monoxide. That's how your body will know where it'll drop off the oxygen in your tissues, wherever there's high amounts of oxygen. So that's really important. That's why breathing slowly is and not quickly is important.
Oh,
Okay,
so
because
just to
you
clarify, the hemoglobin will drop the 4 oxygen in places where there's low oxygen?
yes, it'll drop it where there's low oxygen and high carbon monoxide.
Got it.
So, that's important. But what will happen is the carbon monoxide binds preferentially to the hemoglobin over the oxygen, something like 200 times stronger.
Oh my gosh.
So the hemoglobin doesn't know, it can't differentiate and say, hey, no, you back off, bud, you can't stick here. But the carbon monoxide fits so well on the hemoglobin, better than oxygen. So it'll kick out the oxygen and we'll die because now we're delivering carbon monoxide to the tissues and it kills us
So if
and we
someone's
have no oxygen.
jogging, in San Francisco in the traffic, what they're
Yes,
doing is they're delivering carbon monoxide to their cells instead of oxygen. And that's the jogging or running is when in a city or riding your bicycle, it's exactly when you want to be delivering oxygen to your cells, but you're
that's right.
delivering more carbon monoxide from the exhaust.
You actually increase cardiovascular disease risk from doing this. So people who are exercising in busier, more polluted areas are actually increasing cardiovascular risk, not decreasing it.
Oh
And that
wow.
has to do with a gene that I discuss in dirty genes called NOS3. And NOS3 is a very, very important gene to keep clean, and it gets dirty very easily and very easily. So if you're listening to this and you have cold hands, then your NOS3 is a bit dirty. And since you and I are talking, and I'm talking a lot, I'm not breathing properly, and my hands are on the cooler side. But I can change this simply by breathing more focused and concentrating. And Patrick McEwen, his book, The Oxygen Advantage, really gets into this. But that's the Buteyko method, and very simply, it's you should be breathing so you don't even feel the air going through your nostrils, and it should just be very slow in and very slow out, um, and kind of to the point where you're a bit uncomfortable with it, and it takes practice, but that will warm your hands right up. And I've done this many, many times in conferences because if you breathe through your nose, you increase nitric oxide through your nose, which then triggers your cardiovascular system to produce nitric oxide. But if you're running, you're getting full of carbon dioxide and you're polluting your entire cardiovascular system. Now, to go back to folate, folic acid binds preferentially to the folate receptors and the folate transporters in the body over the body's types of folate that it wants. Remember that folic acid goes through one gene, it's called DHFR, dihydrofolate reductase, so DHFR. It goes through this gene, and that gene, if there's no SNP or there's no methotrexate or no many medications slow this gene down even further, this gene, if it's perfectly functioning, can handle 200 micrograms of folic acid before it gets saturated and it can't work anymore. That's if it's working, at its 100% peak best. But there's a number of people who have this genetic problem in this particular gene, and I don't know the percentage offhand, and 23andMe doesn't test for it, unfortunately. And again, many medications block it, including methotrexate and antibiotics as well, and green tea extract, which a lot of people take, and NSAIDs as well. Anti-inflammatories also block it. So now what happens is this folic acid can't get through this DHFR gene, so it has to go somewhere, so it stays in the blood. And the researchers call that unmetabolized folic acid, UMFA. And what UMFA does is it will get to your folate transport proteins, because we think that if you swallow a vitamin that we're magically healed, right? We're getting everything, but that's not how it works. You have to digest it, you have to absorb it. Once you absorb it, then you have to have typically these transport proteins carry it through your blood for you. And then after these transport proteins carry it, they have to deliver it to the cell receptor, and then the cell receptor says okay, and then it will deliver the nutrient and get it inside the cell. So there's multiple steps involved. And folic acid blocks two huge ones: the transportation of the folate and the getting inside the cell from the receptor. So people can be functionally folate deficient. They could be taking all the folate they want, But if they're getting folic acid from processed foods or their supplements, they are functionally depriving their cells of the number one type of folate in their body, which is called methylfolate. So they are walking around kind of with brain fog and kind of dumb and knowing it and inattentive and moody and getting more and more toxic feeling. And they don't know why. And then they go to the doctor and their folate levels are fine, but their folate levels aren't fine. They're they're artificially blocked.
Fascinating. So the methylfolate. What if someone took a methylfolate supplement? Does it matter? Is there any way to override the folic acid in the body, or must we make sure we're simply not getting it in our diet, and we're also not on those drugs which affect the DHFR gene?
Yeah, I mean everything you just said there was important, and there's something called competitive inhibition, right? So if you buy a lottery ticket, you buy just one, you have one chance of winning, right? If you buy 1,000 of them, now you have a kind of 1,000 chances of winning, correct?
Yes.
So if you're taking folic acid, let's say 200 micrograms, and you're taking 200 micrograms of methylfolate supplement, then you have some chance of getting some good folate into your cell. But if you're taking if or consuming a lot of processed foods, and you've learned that taking vitamins is good, and you're drinking all these energy water drinks things nowadays, which have tons of folic acid in it as well, because more is better. And so now it doesn't really matter that you're taking a good quality methylfolate. You might not even feel anything. In fact, I've had individuals they say, Dr. Lynch, I'm on 15 milligrams of methylfolate, and I'm feeling nothing. The RDA, the recommended daily allowance for folate, is 400 micrograms.
Oh
And
wow.
these folks are taking 15 milligrams, which is thousands of times more than the RDA, and they're still feeling nothing. And there's multiple reasons for that. High homocysteine can do that, and folate receptor antibodies. So now you don't just have folic acid blocking the transport proteins or blocking the receptors, but now you have antibodies blocking them too. And so if you have leaky gut, or you have high homocysteine, now you have antibodies floating around and blocking your folate receptors. So let's say you say, okay, God, I'm listening to all this. I'm going to go through my cabinet right now, and I'm going to throw away all these vitamins and with folic acid away. And you should. You should just chuck them. Done. Gone. I didn't say rip out your gas stove. I said use the hood. With folic acid supplementation, I'm telling you to throw it away. And processed foods, enjoy them, but minimally. I eat the garbage too at times, but minimize that. And but in terms of folic acid supplementation, you should chuck it. And I lost my train of thought.
Well, that's good because I've got a
Oh,
follow-up question.
yeah,
So
good.
you made a list of things that we should avoid to best support the DHFR gene. One of the things you said is avoid, well, like void NSAIDs, right? But you also said anti-inflammatories will gum up the DHFR gene. What about natural anti-inflammatories like turmeric or quercetin? Do they affect it, or are you simply talking about the drug anti-inflammatories?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a map on my wall that I have all these genes. I can't remember all the things that slow them down or speed it up and all that. So I have a poster on my wall of probably about 100 of these different things, and I'm looking at DHFR now, and methotrexate, NSAIDs, antibiotics, folic acid, green tea extract, rapeseed extract, and then it says CPDF for even more. So this gene is very, very well researched, and I have to thank the researchers for that. And but yeah, it says CPDF, so there's a laundry list,
Do,
literally.
I take it there's more information in your book, Dirty Genes, about this specific one pathway and how we can best support it.
There is, and it's a step-by-step approach, which is helpful for people because you and I are sharing some very, very important information here, but we're also getting very under the microscope in some of these things, right? We're not thinking big picture. And this is what happens when people start thinking about their genetics, is they start thinking minutia, and they stop thinking that, big picture, like, using the air filtration for their cooking.
Mm-hmm.
So dirty genes guides people through that. But also, if you want to get really nerdy and geek out, there's a genetic report that I developed called Strategene, and it uses only 23andMe, not Ancestry or anything else. And it's because Ancestry has mainly ancestral DNA. I mean, that's kind of what they do, right? So you don't have enough clinically relevant genes on Ancestry.com to run through genetic report. So 23andMe right now is only what Strategene uses, and that's STRATEGENE, as in strategic genetic analysis, and it provides not only some really, really important SNPs like MTHFR and CONT and glutathione stuff and neurotransmitter stuff, but it also provides you a map so you can see what dirties up the genes. Because a lot of people do genetic testing and they say, okay, well, I have MTHFR and I need to take methylfolate and avoid folic acid, but people don't understand that riboflavin, vitamin B2, is what your enzyme for MTHFR needs in order to function. They also don't know that folic acid gums it up too, and so do various medications. And they also don't understand that if they don't have MTHFR in a lab test, a genetic test, they say, oh, woohoo, I don't have MTHFR, I'm fine. No, no, your MTHFR can still be a problem because of hypothyroidism, because of folic acid, because of low riboflavin, and other reasons and other meds. So just because you're born without a genetic mutation or a genetic SNP doesn't mean your genes are going to be humming along through life and helping you out, because we can't forget the epigenetic control. And that's what Strategene really, really provides for folks, is a quick glance of what lifestyle factors and what meds and what vitamins and minerals and what chemicals really interfere with certain things.
Where can people get that report?
At drbenlynch.com.
Okay, so the link to everything you do, those links I have for you in your book, they're going to be in the show notes of the podcast at learntourhealth.com, so listeners can get that. I have so many questions. This is fantastic. So the ancestral DNA, I think a lot of people, they go to their MD and their MD says, "Oh, it's genetic," or the
Mm-hmm.
nurse practitioner comes in and goes, "What did your grandmother die of? Tell me about, is there cancer in your family history? Is there this in your family history?" And they make a really big deal, real big emphasis on what illnesses did your parents and your grandparents have. How much weight does that really carry? Because I've spoken with naturopaths who say just stop listening to the MD's excuse telling you that everything you have is genetic. That, oh, because you have diabetes, you're going to always have diabetes because your parents or your grandparents had diabetes, or heart disease, or high blood pressure is ridiculous, because it's what you do with your body now that matters. And don't worry about the health history. Don't worry about what your parents had. That what your parents had isn't a determining factor as to what you're going to end up with. Your actions are. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think they're definitely right up to a point. Family history is very, very valid. And, if you had a number of people in your life or in your family struggle with something, doesn't matter what, cancer, cardiovascular disease, bipolar, neurological stuff, dementia, doesn't matter, eczema, psoriasis, asthma, any condition, if you see it run in your family, there is most likely a genetic component there. And yes, if you lead a lifestyle that is healthy, then the likelihood of you struggling from that condition is lower. But what's really important and empowering and powerful to know is, what genes did I inherit that are causing the problems? Because if you know which genes are born dirty in you, then you know where you should be spending more time and more caution, right? So you know that if you're about out of gas in your car, you're not going to accelerate quickly off a stop sign, right? you're not going to gun it up a hill. You're going to be easing the accelerator to maximize your fuel efficiency so you can get to the next gas station, correct? Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you know your own genetic fuel tank gauge of where that gene is that has been causing cardiovascular disease through all your relatives or many of your relatives, and you find out, God, you know what? That's my NOS3 gene. It's a dirty nitric oxide synthase gene, or it's a dirty glutathione gene, or a dirty MTHFR gene, or a dirty COMT gene. All these contribute to cardiovascular disease. And you look at those and you're like, God, you know what? I have all of them dirty. And you think, oh, damn, I'm screwed. No, no, you're not. You just, your fuel tank is half full, and you need to go through life, cruising along and not gunning it so much. So, whereas you look at your friends or other family members and they're going through life gunning it all the time, they're going to struggle and they'll probably die of cardiovascular disease. So there can be times where you gun it, but just be more mindful that you got to go through life more on a more chill pace, more consistent. And the cool thing is you can support yourself through very targeted actions that will support these weaker genes. And the genes I discussed in dirty genes are very amiable to increase certain foods, decrease certain foods. They love deeper sleep. They love cleaner air, but they also love very targeted supplementation. And, there's some genes that, like the slow COMT, if you take the quiz in the book and you find out you're a slow COMT by quite a lot, and that your fast COMT isn't that much of a player, but your slow COMT is, you better get some vacations in there. I mean, seriously, vacations and unwinding and personal you time and stop serving others. I mean, really, actually, how many women put
Mm-hmm.
themselves first in their family versus supporting their own needs? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and we just did the Dirty Jeans Summit, and we just wrapped that up last weekend. And my wife listened to many, many interviews, and I brought up this exact same point because I interviewed 48 experts, and so my wife just gets home from yoga, and she was gone all morning, and she comes back, and she has to prepare and pick up the kids, and I said, let's go for a walk, and she goes, is that to benefit me or to benefit you? I was like, damn it, which interview did you just listen to? But you gotta really ask that question.
Mm. I love it. And I think we should just all assume that we have that dirty gene and take more time for ourselves because de stressing is so beneficial, so helpful. Now, let me get a little bit back to basics. I just want to back up and go. Could you explain what a dirty gene is for those who may not fully understand what you mean by dirty gene?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a dirty gene is a gene that's not functioning at its best. It's that simple. Uh, I believe in optimal functioning. I believe that if you come home and you've been gone for a week and you look at your dining room table and you see dust on it, that's a dirty table. You know, and if you wipe the table clean and using natural stuff like maybe warm water and dry it off, great. But then you wipe it off, and then you see there's actually a scratch in the table that is pretty significant, and it actually arrived that way, and you forgot. It's like, oh, there's that scratch again, right? So some things you can be born with genes that already have a scratch in them. They don't work as well as a gene that doesn't have this scratch in it. Now, we all want to have tables that don't have scratches in them. Well, not all of us. Some of us are retro, and we want to we want to buy those tables that are a little bit aged. And nowadays, kids come home and actually with $100 pair of pants that have 40 holes in them already right off the shelves. I think it's like, God, I used to have to buck 20 tons of alfalfa for the horses in order to get holes into my jeans, and I throw them away. Now you guys are spending money for those things. So basically, a dirty gene is a gene that you can inherit from your mom or your dad or both that is not functioning as well as it should be in your particular environment. And so you can inherit it, or it can get dirty. And it gets dirty from sitting in your garage after you start your car, or turning on your gas stove and not having the hood on, or being stressed out with chronic stress, or eating chips and bacon all day long, or deciding to go into ketogenic diets and eating nothing but fat. So these, it's our lifestyle actions, either support or don't support. So it's basically a gene that it's not getting the support it needs. And in the book Dirty Genes, it's not a doom and gloom book. It's not, oh, look at this, you're born with these genes and your risk for cancer is increased like 70 times and blah blah blah. I don't do that. It's basically saying, look, if you're born with these genes, there are strengths to them. There are strengths. And I go through the strengths of these different genes, and I tell you through the weaknesses as well. So if you have a glutathione gene problem, for example, you were born with a dirty glutathione gene, meaning that your glutathione gene is not producing glutathione or it can't use it. And that's not really that great in today's environment. But what happens is you're very sensitive to chemicals pretty quickly in your life. And so you're going to say, wow, I walk down the aisles of Home Depot, down the pesticides and herbicides and paints and so on, and I don't feel good from that. You're not going to be buying those chemicals, and you're not going to walk down there. You're going to be more in tune to avoiding them. Whereas someone who has a pretty good, solid, functioning glutathione gene, they was like, oh, you're such a wimp. And, they stick their hand in the bag of castor on, or they walk in shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops and, mix the Roundup with no gloves and spray it around, and they're getting Roundup all over their legs. And they don't care, right? They don't feel it, but their cells are feeling it, but they don't. So there's pros and cons here. And let me give you another example. What's the medicine? I forget the name of that medicine they give to alcoholics. Do you remember that? Remember the name?
No.
Yeah. So they give this one drug to alcoholics because if they drink alcohol gets turned into something called acetaldehyde, and it's super toxic.
Mm.
And when alcohol turns into acetaldehyde, then it gets processed into something else and it leaves the body. Well, this drug that the antabuse, it's called antabuse. So the acetaldehyde levels increase, and they drink alcohol and they feel awful, so they stop drinking, right? So that's kind of the glutathione gene does the same thing. And I was working years ago on a product to help people drinking alcohol to not get hungover, and it worked. I mean, that supplement would have gone gangbusters. And I was getting pretty close to launching it because I was trying it on some friends and was like, man, this really works. Thanks, I can drink more. And like, that's not really the direction I want to go, but I'll make some good money with it. And then I read a study, and when I first read this study, actually, I was pretty excited but what I read was the people who drink alcohol and are less likely to get hungover are more likely to become alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have these weaker genes, they help us out sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. It reminds me of I heard something. I learned this from Joshua, the creator of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. One of his health lectures, he said, "Those with the strong." I mean, this, and at first this felt like a contradiction. He said, "Those with a strong constitution will die sooner than those with a weak constitution."
Mm.
And at first I thought, that's ridiculous. Those with a strong constitution are strong and will live long. He goes, no, those with a strong constitution beat their bodies up, drag it through the ground, and then one day drop dead of a heart attack.
Yes.
And those with a weak constitution will, like you said, go through the perfume aisle or go through the cleaning or the pesticide aisle, and they will become so sensitive they end up really avoiding them. They have an early avoidance behavior, and that early avoidance behavior leads them to naturally have a less toxic life. And they're the ones that take vacations. They're the ones that know they need to like really like leave work at 5 p.m. and not skip any meals, because any little deviation from their healthy lifestyle leads them to being incredibly sick, and they feel it right away. I'm the type of person that if I drink any alcohol the next day, I just feel like a train wreck, and so I don't drink any alcohol at all, and that's
Hmm.
been my avoidance behavior, and it served me well. So I can see that we want to really listen to our body. And so many naturopaths have said on the show, listen to the symptoms of your body, and especially listen when they're whispers. Just if you could just tune yourself in to hear the headache as a symptom, to hear the any little tiny inconvenience, like a little bit of heartburn. If you catch it when it's just a whisper and do something about it, then you're going to be avoiding a major illnesses down the road. So what other kind of big eye-opening things should we know? We've talked about folate versus folic acid. And just to clarify, is folic acid man-made and not natural?
Correct.
And
That's
so
correct.
so folate is the natural thing, and that's the thing, that if we have enough folate as a mom in pregnancy, we'd prevent neurotube defects, correct?
Yeah, and the media has really oversimplified this. I have a video called "Folic Acid in Pregnancy,"
Mhm.
and it's on YouTube. It's freely available. Um, but I did this. My wife was pregnant with our first son. First thing I did was we went to the pharmacy and got 800 micrograms of folic acid because that's what you do. And so here you're hearing me say, and I'm glad you brought this up, is it's like, pregnant women need to take folate. That's very important. They need to avoid folic acid.
Mm.
And so folate comes from the word foliage, and foliage is greens. So, if you're eating your green leafy vegetables, that's great. Liver is also another very good source of folate. Just make sure it's, unfortunately, from young calf livers that are organic and free range, not feedlot, livers. Those are
Mhm.
those are going to be super toxic. I can't stand the smell or taste of liver personally. Um, but I do love. Well, no, I'll be honest. I don't love leafy greens, but I'm better with them now. Thankfully, my wife Nadia is very good at making salads, and we get those quite often now in the home. But when I was in college and a young kid, I never ate those damn things. But I do well with them now, but still need better improvement. But yes, we do need folate for pregnancy.
I always love it when NDs get really humble and be like, I'm not eating enough vegetables. It's just so funny. It's like, it's the human condition. We just have to keep reminding ourselves to eat more vegetables. Now, what do you think about juicing? Like, if I could supplement, if it's like, I know I'm not eating like 8 cups of leafy greens a day, but if I could just juice some beets and beet greens and spinach and kale and carrots and drink, 16 ounces of that a day, would you count that towards the folate that I'd be getting in my diet, or should we really be eating it as a leafy green that's uncooked, or is it okay to cook it?
Well, there's a lot there. There's a lot to what you said, and throwing in a smoothie, it's great. You can do that, and there's a lot to food here, and I will just tell you that there is no there's let me you had multiple parts to your question, and I
Sorry.
and I want to hit them all. No, they're good. I didn't write them down. I have a pad and paper here with a pen. I didn't write them down. I thought I remember it, but I always go on these tangents and I'll forget. So if you can just please restate your question there, I want to make sure I dial it
All
in
right.
there.
Well, I'll break it down. I apologize.
Uh,
What are your thoughts on juicing and versus just eating a salad? Like if
mhm.
someone knows they're just not getting enough leafy green vegetables,
Yep.
is it okay to juice them?
Okay, I'm good now. So you triggered my memory. Okay, so juicing versus just raws and cooking. Okay, so the simple one I'll hit first. So if you cook your leafy green vegetables, ideally steam them for not very long, and you'll get your folate. So the longer you cook your leafy green vegetables, the more likely your folate will be less and less bioavailable and get destroyed. But there was a statistic and some stats showed Some actually guy found it for me and posted on one of my videos. I can't remember what it was. Um, but basically, in short, the less you cook your food, which contains folate, the more folate you'll have available. You'll still get it though. You'll still get it. Um, Raw leafy greens are great. Anything green is good. But if you have a weak constitution and your digestion isn't very good, eating those cold, raw vegetables can be hard on you. So you might want to steam them. If you know that you're a more frail, brittle, tend to be cold, weak digestive power person, then you should be steaming your vegetables and cooking them this way. Or having soups or Ayurvedic khicharis are really good. The Ayurvedic cookbook I really enjoy too, but kids don't really like those. So that's with the cooking. And then if you have a very strong digestive constitution, yeah, eating salads are great. And keep in mind the seasons too. In the summers, people do tend to like their salads and their fruits better, where in the winter they might want their soups and stews. So pay attention to how you're feeling and honor that. Don't think you need to eat a salad because that's the healthy choice. Well, you can still get your greens steamed and still digest them. So keep in mind your body temperature and the power of your digestion and how you feel after you eat. Do you feel like you just ate a rock and your digestion just is kind of stuck and you're cold? Or do you feel like you're more energized? You should feel more energized after you eat. And I give you a lot of insights in the book, Dirty Genes, too, of how to optimize your eating a bit better, to have a better experience without supplements. Supplements are useful, but I don't want people on those on the first leg. If you can get it better this way. Now, in terms of juicing, this is a hot one, and I love juicing, um, but I can't stand the cleanup after. It's so much cleanup. It's just you got all sorts of parts you got to clean, and they always get stuck, and you got all the fiber stuff that you was like, what do I do with this now? And you throw it away, and so. But I have a blend tech. I like
Hmm.
blend tech over Vitamix.
Really? Why
Vitamix,
is that?
it's not as noisy. Um,
You must have had a
and
Vitamix from Costco. Those things are brutal.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. We've killed in our home two Blendtecks already, and there's a gasket where the blade is,
Hmm.
and it just dies. It just starts. You drink your smoothie, and you're like, where'd this rubber piece come from? And you're
Oh
like,
no!
yeah. So
Oh,
that's a big strike. That's a
yeah.
big strike. So they got to fix that somehow. But maybe I should get a Vitamix. Maybe that's what it's telling me. Um,
Don't get the ones from Costco. I interviewed a guy who's like the expert, the number one expert in Vitamixes, and he breaks down his website is lifeisnoyoke.com. He's a funny guy, and he's so passionate about Vitamix. Like he's really like just tell it like it is, and he takes every single model and tells you the difference between all of them. And I found him when I was looking to buy one, and I ended up buying a refurbished one from Vitamix, and I used the payment plan option through PayPal, so I only pay like $27 a month for my like $600 Vitamix. And so I choose through his advice, through looking at all his videos, he compared everything, and I picked the one that is exactly what I knew I'd wanted, and it is infinitely better than the one from Costco. The one from Costco they make cheaply. It's still a really good blender, but it's incredibly loud, and so it's that you're kind of getting what they call he calls it a Frankenstein Vitamix. I like Blendtec too. I think the company's wonderful. They support the people who like children who need to be on feeding tubes, and they donate their blenders to that cause, and so that's a really worthy company. But I keep hearing from my friends that their blend techs keep breaking down, and I've never had a friend tell me their Vitamix broke down. So
Good to know.
I've
What
been
model
through
do you have? if I
Um,
may ask?
oh, you know what? I will put it, I'll put it in the link of the show notes, and I'll email it to you. I don't remember it's a bunch of numbers. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'll send it to you. I'll let you know which one. And I actually really like it. It has it's different programs, and so you could just set it to like create a smoothie, or create a souffle,
Mm,
create a sauce, or or it has a cleaning option. And so I'll just set it to the different programs if I know I'm making something specific. But oftentimes I ended up not using the programs. I like the cleaning program. You just put it on the cleaning program, and then you just walk away, and it's self-cleaning. So that's fun. But owned about 7 juicers in my life, and I know exactly what you mean about the cleanup is crazy. I've decided that my favorite one right now, for because it's the quickest to clean up. I can have the entire kitchen cleaned up in less than 5 minutes, because I've heard you have a 15-minute window to drink your juice to get the
mm-hmm.
maximum benefit. And so I'm like, I better clean this up and then drink my juice. And that's the Breville. I'll link it in the show notes as well. There's a Breville, and there's sort of different horsepowers you can get. And I have
Right.
actually owned 2 of them. I bought one brand new, the lower horsepower, the cheaper one. It was like $100 on Amazon on sale. And then I went to St. Vincent de Paul, which is in Monroe, which is a thrift store, and they had the most expensive Breville one for like $10 used, and the guy
Oh,
like never used it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy that. So now I own 2 Brevilles that are almost identical. And the one with more horsepower, the one less horsepower, they both do the job. I just happen to like the one with the more horsepower better. I think I get a little bit more juice out of everything. Um, but it doesn't, it goes very fast, and then and then the pulp is still kind of moist. Like, you wish you could just squeeze the last few
right.
drops out of the pulp.
Exactly.
But and I always, look at it going, man, I feel like I'm throwing a bit of waste away. But you could also take that pulp and like bake with it or do something like that. But I'm like, you know what? I'm saving time, so got 1 less ounce of juice. So what? I'm saving time, and the point is, at least I'm getting this into my family. So I kind of had to just trade off. At least I'm just getting something into my family is better than getting nothing into my family, because I'm worried about, that centrifugal is a little bit less effective than
Mm-hmm.
the other kind of juicers. But I was interested in your thought process, because if people live such a busy lifestyle that they can't get enough folates, enough foliage into their diet, that they could consider implementing juicing or smoothies, where they throw all those greens into a blender and just pound it back,
Mm-hmm.
and that's better than nothing at all, right?
Yeah, it is. And there's a whole slew of issues with juicing though, and food sensitivities, gut health,
Mm.
digestive abilities all tie into this. And so if there's a gene in your digestive system called that's dirty, that's called DAO, its job is to break down histamine. And then you have another gene that's called PEMT, which is very, very important for cell membranes and your phosphatidylcholine. And phosphatidylcholine is needed to help make your bile from your gallbladder slide through as well, so you can process fats and kill bacteria and absorb fatty nutrients. If these 2 genes are dirty and you slam down a smoothie, and you're stressed out, then it's not going to do that good. But I mean, that's with any meal, right? It's not necessarily
Mm.
a smoothie. So, I'm also, I have a smoothie most mornings, probably, I would say probably 4 days a week. And I do a lot of time restricted feeding for myself. I mean, this morning I woke up and I had breakfast probably around 9:30, which is early for me. I went yesterday, I didn't eat food until 3 in the afternoon. Um, and I really listened to that. So I'm a fat burner, and but I wasn't originally. So, but to go back with that, you got oxalate issues, you have histamine issues, and all that has to do with your digestive health. And so cleaning all that up is important. But there's a lot of books on what recipes for smoothies, and people throw in pineapples and avocados and bananas and strawberries, and they're like thinking, and then they throw a bunch of spinach in there, and then they even throw some cabbage and onions and garlic, and and then they drink it, and they think that it's oh, it's going to be super healthy, and they feel a little bit of buzz in the beginning because of all the amazing nutrition they're getting, but then they just feel so sick after, and then they think, oh, that's a detox reaction. I'm going to do that again, but it's not. It's not. It's the high histamine, it's the high oxalate, and it's the high sulfur, and they cannot manage it, and so they feel very ill from this, and they get frustrated, and then they stop doing it, and they go back to their junk food because they don't feel ill from their junk food.
Wow.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
How can we clean up the DAO and the PAE gene? Is that what you said? DAO and PAE?
Yeah, PEMT. So PEMT, phosphatidylethylamine methyltransferase. So, and DAO is diamine oxidase. And so diamine oxidase's job is to break down histamine and tyramine and putrescine, and I believe cadaverine. Um, so people are talking about kombucha. They're talking about fermented foods and fermented cod liver oil and uh, what else is huge in being fermented? Uh, I mean, all these fermented foods can be very, very high histamine. Leftovers are high histamine. Fish. I mean, here are folks trying to eat fish because they hear that's healthy, and they eat fish and they feel worse. And they start adding, good fruits to their smoothies, and avocados and limes and citrus, and they feel awful after eating these things. Bananas. So the way you clean up your DAO and your PEMT is really outlined in the book Dirty Genes in a organized fashion. It's not easy, unfortunately. There's you can take some supplements. I mean, there's a DAO supplement out there, but it's like $70 a bottle, and it doesn't fix the problem. So, and then PEMT is like, well, I can just take phosphatidylcholine. Well, you can, but it's not really what you want. You want to fix the problem. So I'm all about trying to fix the problems without having to go out and buy supplements, because a lot of people want to fix their problems by swallowing something. But at the end of the day, it doesn't work like that. So, and you don't really have to. That's the cool thing.
What is the body missing that created this problem?
Well, it's missing the genes functioning right. They were born dirty or they got dirty. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and again, they have benefits. So in terms of DAO, imagine that if you lived 500 years ago and you're out in the forest looking for something to eat, and you take a bite of something and of meat that's rotting, and you don't feel good from it, you stop eating it. And so you don't get all the bacteria that are all over the rotting meat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get diarrhea and it blows out of you. And in fact, you might have been the tribal medicine person, because if you ate it and you lived, then the rest of the tribe was like, oh, this guy lived or this gal lived, I guess we can eat it. So you might have been the taste tester, if you will, of the various herbs or the rotting, decaying flesh. And it's like, oh no. So if you have high histamine in your gut, you could have an increased immune system to fight infection, but you also get you can have explosive diarrhea to get rid of the infection. And you're sensitive to food, so you avoid them better. So again, there's a benefit to that, but the problem is we're no longer living where our ancestors lived. I mean, our DNA does not evolve as fast as a bacteria. We have one generation over basically 80, 100 years, right? So it's slow. We're very slow to evolve. So if you go back 5 generations, maybe six, seven, I mean, we're still hunting and gathering. Not all of us, but a lot of us, right? So we're pioneers. But now we have refrigerators, we have lights, we have processed foods, we have stressors, and we don't abide by the circadian rhythm anymore. Our ancestors used to go to bed when the sun went down. So we don't do that anymore. So these genes there's no longer a benefit really to these things. I mean, there's kind of a benefit because if you still have a dirty DAO, you can still explode these bad bacteria out of you. Sorry for the graphics, but it's true. And a little bit of trivia, which is fun. Pigs don't get seasick, and lions don't either. And seasickness is high histamine. Motion sickness is high histamine. Car sickness, high
Really?
histamine.
I totally
So,
get that. I can't. I cannot sit in a train with my back to the like I can't go
right.
backwards in a train. I'll lose it. I'll lose my cookies.
Yeah. Or, and so, you drink alcohol that's high histamine, especially red wines. You eat fermented foods, high histamine. You get stressed out, you get higher histamine. So you don't sleep well, you get higher histamine. You get infections, you have higher histamine. So, and what do sailors drink? Wine and cheese. So, you go wine tasting and you come back from a wine tasting, you're like, God, I feel awful. And you're driving back from the wine tasters from the cellar, and you're reading the brochures in the car, and you're like, oh, honey, I feel really car sick. So it's not good. But pigs don't get seasick because they have a huge amount of this DAO enzyme. This gene is just pumping out this uh, enzyme to break down all the histamine from the rotten food that they can eat. So pigs are just they're cool, and
S- So people
it's
who have a dirty DAO gene should have a histamine suppressing diet, a low histamine diet.
well, see, that's the thing. That was what I originally thought in the beginning, but you can support it with various nutrients. You can support it with certain probiotics. You have to make sure you don't have high histamine containing or producing probiotics, which there are, and you can have them in moderation. But there's probiotic strains which degrade histamine or modulate the release of histamine. When I say modulate, I mean kind of control. When you have a dial on your oven, you can control the temperature, right, and adjust it, and the body can control how much histamine is being released, and probiotics can help do that. And I actually formulated a probiotic which blew me away at how effective it was. I mean, I didn't even realize it was effective until I tuned in and realized that I was not reacting to dust mites like I usually do. So I just took this probiotic for a couple days, and I used to be super sensitive to dust mites. I mean, it was embarrassing actually. I mean, I was like afraid of the vacuum cleaner and the couch. We have leather couches. We don't have any uh, cloth-based couches. Chairs are not furry at all. They're wood with like a leather seat cushion. I have a stone table. I mean, so I was doing everything I could to minimize the dust mite sensitivity. But so we moved into this rental, and my wife Nadia, she threw the stuff in the dryer, and stuff wasn't dry. I was like, oh, I gotta tear the pipe apart, the duct apart to get all the lint out of there because I'm sure it's full. So I was like, all right, here we go. I'm telling myself I'm gonna have to jump in the shower. So I pull the dryer out, I get the vent out, and yeah, it's full. So I take outside, I shake it, and I look behind the dryer, and it's just a mess. So I clean up all the floor, and then I pull out the lint trap in the dryer, and it's packed. So I unscrew all that, and I clean all that out, and just dust is flying everywhere. And I'm not reacting at all. Usually I have a runny nose, rhinitis is clear mucus coming out of my nose, and I usually get red dots on tops of my hands. And it's like, what the heck? I'm not reacting. And so I thought about it for a second. So I was just about to take off all my clothes right there in the laundry room and go to the shower, but I stopped because I wasn't reacting, and I was like, what happened? It's like, are these like foreign dust mites that my body doesn't recognize, or what's up? And I realized I just was taking this probiotic for 2 days, and so I that really gave me a powerful insight into the microbiome. So in short, you support your microbiome and you support it with the right bacteria.
Wow. Wow. How would we know that our probiotic is supporting us in this way? Like besides testing our exposure to things we know would kick up our allergies, is there a way any other ways we would know?
Well, you feel worse from your probiotic. And you buy a probiotic and you think that you're doing yourself justice. You buy kefir, you buy um, uh, kombucha, and you think you're doing great, right, for your system, your microbiome, and but you're that weird person who actually doesn't feel good from it. Or you take your probiotic and you actually feel worse, and your doctor says, "Oh, it's a die off, let it adjust," but it's not. It's the histamine, and there's certain strains that really pump out histamine. And so I've been researching this for a number of years, and I was building this probiotic for about 3 years, and I finally pulled the trigger, and I said, I don't know if this is going to work or not. So I tried it on myself and my immediate family, and then I got a bunch of bottles and I shipped it out to a bunch of people, and people are all getting benefit. And it's like, this is ridiculous. So based upon your symptoms, and I know because I researched the heck out of it for many, many years.
Got it. So if you take a probiotic, you start feeling worse, stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, because the histamine can really give you a headache, irritability, insomnia, difficulty breathing, gut pains,
Oh,
skin rashes, anything that's histamine related. And people say, well, how do I know if I'm high histamine? Well, you just take your fingernails and don't be gentle to yourself, but roll up your sleeve and turn your palm upward to the ceiling and scratch your forearm. And if you see red lines, don't scratch hard. If you see a bunch of red lines, you're high histamine.
oh yeah. I totally. If I take a shower, if when I take a shower, let me
Yeah.
rephrase that. I'm not like sitting over here, Miss Stinky, but when I take a shower and I get out of the shower and I rubbed all off, my husband comes in the bathroom, and goes, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "There's red lines all over your body."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that'll go away. Don't worry about it." Um, but yeah, I get those red lines, especially after a shower. So I'm potentially high histamine.
Yeah, and if here's another one. So you exercise, and are you that red-faced person?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, so that's high histamine. So if you're red-faced while
Oh,
you're exercising and it goes away right away, that's okay. Because you need the histamine is releasing to support your the for blood flow and all that. But if it stays red for like 20, 30 minutes or longer after exercise, yeah, that's high histamine. And so the probiotic I made is it's called probiotic histaminics, and it's 10 billion per capsule. And when I first tested it on myself, it was 20 billion per capsule, but the pill was too big. And I wanted kids to be able to use it, so I cut it down to 10 in a smaller capsule. But it's 10 billion per capsule, and I do recommend people start out with one capsule, not two, so to adjust their microbiome, because there is remodeling going on in the gut. So you take a probiotic like this, it could contribute to constipation or gas and bloating for a few days, but then by that it should stop. So it shouldn't happen anymore.
fascinating. I feel like I want to talk to you for hours. I feel like we've just opened this giant can of worms, and we've only covered like two or three genes in much detail, but there's so much to this. And I like that you're reassuring us that your book really is not this intense, that it allows us to walk through step by step. So you have a quiz in your book? Do we need to get the 23andMe test in order to
Nope.
work with your book, or can we just
Nope.
read your book and know what to do?
No, you read your book, you know what to do. And I'll be forthright here. The genetic when people order genetic testing, it sends them down the wrong direction.
Mm.
You go down the wrong way. It's a one-way road, and you're driving the wrong way. And it's when you get the book and you take the quizzes, you realize and you turn yourself back around and you're driving back on that one-way road the right way again. And it's really that simple. Genetic testing is in its infancy, and it's frustrating tons of people, including me. And the genetic test report that I created, Strategene, is for next level folks who want to up the ante. Dirty Genes, the book, is where everyone should start, including health professionals. including doctors, it should be reading dirty genes. Um, I mean, I don't mean to be insulting to health professionals, but I would say, hey, if I just got into genetics and I want to utilize genetics in my practice, I wish Dirty Genes was written when I started, because I tried fixing SNP by SNP, gene by gene, with vitamins and minerals and certain very simple lifestyle stuff. And I failed myself. I failed my patients. I failed my clients. I failed all these practitioners I was teaching, and for a long time. And so finally, there is now a process in which you can learn how your body functions and how you can take a simple quiz without expensive labs, without having to look at your genes, to see how these genes are working, because you learn by every one of these chapters, you learn what methylation is, you learn what genes do, and then every chapter I discuss in detail what the gene does, what its jobs are, how they perform their function, what symptoms are attributed to, if it's not working right, what makes them get dirty, and then near the middle of the book, I tell you how to clean up the entire system, your whole body, because you can't clean just one gene. You have to clean up the whole system first.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you go play football. Well, let's make it even simpler. You jump into a swimming pool and you're soaking wet, and you take a hair dryer and you decide to dry off the sleeve of your t-shirt to put it back on. That's kind of what people are trying to do when they clean their genes. With they do a genetic test and they find the FR. They're still soaking wet from the pool and they're hair drying the sleeve of the left arm. It just doesn't work.
It's funny.
So
Yeah, Robin Openshaw said that about you, that she loved that your book addressed it holistically, that you had a holistic approach, and she, unlike any other expert in this field, who tends to get really chunked down in the details, and in the supplements, that she really, and I'm a believer in supplements, but I believe it supplements a really good diet. We have to have a foundation of health, and then we bring in like the minerals and the appropriate vitamins if needed, and like
yes,
vitamin D. Like, it's really good to have that. We should use all the tools, like you said at the beginning of the show. We have tools. We have a microphone, and we have a computer, and our body uses nutrients, but we got to make sure we're giving it the right nutrients, and get as much as you can from your diet. And I just am a firm believer that supplements should be to supplement, not you take supplements and then you go eat McDonald's, right? So we've got to just
yeah.
have that. But I love that Robin Openshaw said about you. She goes, you have this holistic approach to epigenetics that allows us to clean up the whole body, and look at life holistically, look at the body holistically, that you won't get a giant pitch for a bunch of vitamins from you.
No, and I own a supplement company. I mean, the it would be super easy for me to create a genetic testing report
Mm-hmm.
that here are all the supplements you take. And then I could have written a book to say, here are all the supplements you take. And I could be making a killing, but people would not get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have to be generating new customer after new customer. And eventually people would see that it doesn't work. But there's so many people actually that want it to work that it's easy to get new customers. And so all these other genetic testing report companies out there and all these other supplement companies out there who are doing this, they're making a ton of money, but they're not serving the customer. And it's really irritating to me. And I'm trying to calm down. But it's super frustrating because, imagine sitting in your car in the garage, sucking down car exhaust, and having an oxygen mask next to you.
Mm.
I mean, it's just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Turn the dang car off. I mean, or you feel not so good, and maybe people aren't actually sick from the food that they're eating, but by the time they are cooking over the stove and all the oil is burning and they're breathing all the aldehydes from the oil that they're cooking, because they're being vaporized and they're inhaling those. So maybe by the time they actually sit down at the table, they don't feel good. And it's not from the food, it's because of all the gunk that they've breathed in from cooking it.
Mm.
So it's just these little things, right, that make such a huge difference for people. And I've been doing it this way for a number of years now, and I finally packaged it into 360 pages, and I can't believe I pulled it off. To be honest, I can't believe I pulled it off in a way that it's still individualized to the reader. So, because you take these quizzes, the general soak and scrub, which is the basic cleanup, eat right, sleep right, all that. But I do it in a way that's methodical, and I teach folks in the book my own personal schedule of how I do it. Like, this is what I do in the morning. This is what I do in the afternoon. I make it relatable. I make it approachable. I make it affordable, practical. And I don't bash people over the head pretending I'm this perfect specimen of health where I'm doing the best things 100% at the time. I don't. I'm not going to pretend that I live a perfect picture of health, because that would mean I live in a bubble in a box, and I I'd be stressed over doing that, and it's just dumb. And I'm sick and tired of reading books where the writer is pretending that they're the perfect specimen of health, and they've spent all this money on this weird food, and you know what I mean? I'm going off a little bit here,
No,
but
no, I love it because I think that sometimes we put doctors on a pedestal and
mm,
we feel, especially naturopaths, that they are, that they all they do is, they're all vegans that do yoga and eat leafy green vegetables all day long. And what you're saying is that you're human and you're just like us, and you just happen to have more knowledge that you're learning to apply, and you also want to teach us how to apply this knowledge, which then becomes wisdom, so that we can help all the genes in our body to function optimally. But life happens, and so how can we, on a day-to-day basis, implement these activities to best support our genes?
you nailed it. You nailed it. And you know, when you define the word supplement, it means to add or enhance.
Mm-hmm.
So you go through the soak and scrub, you go through the basic cleanup of the book, and you clean all that up. And then you take another very, more detailed quiz. So there's two quizzes. And so it's called the laundry list, which is pretty funny. And so you take laundry list one, which is pretty generic. It's not generic. It's just shorter and quicker. Just to give you a sampling to see how your genes are doing. And then you do the soak and scrub. You clean that up, and then you take laundry list two. Laundry list two is more in depth. And then once you take that, then there's an order in which you clean them up. You don't just clean up the dirtiest gene first. You have to clean up certain genes in order that I approach them in the book, because if you go about it the wrong way, you won't get results. For example, if and I do this is where supplements will come into the picture finally. Supplements don't come into the picture in the book until about page 250, I think, and I try to keep it very minimal. Um, and so, in terms of NOS3, the cardiovascular gene, you have to have all other six genes clean or working on them before you can target it by itself. Because, as I say in the book, genes are in constant communication with each other, and they work together. And so, if your MTHFR is dirty, your DAO is dirty, your CMT is dirty, and so on, then your NOS3 is dirty by default. It's just dirty. Even if it was born clean, you didn't inherit any SNPs from your mom or dad. If your MTHFR gene is dirty, your NOS3 is dirty. Done. If your glutathione gene is dirty, inherited or not, your NOS3 is dirty. Done. Your DAO is dirty, NOS3 is dirty. Done. I mean, that's
Wow.
why cardiovascular risk is so dang prevalent. It's super easy to get cardiovascular disease because this gene is super sensitive. And you better know how to be proactive and prevent it from getting dirty. Or if you do get it dirty, you better know how to clean it up. And so
Well,
I give you both both worlds
Yeah,
for
well, you
17
say
bucks.
you say like that gene is so sensitive, but I'm thinking like what the things in the last 50 years that we've been throwing at our body. Like,
Mm,
it's like it's not, I mean, I think that I want to propose that that gene isn't that sensitive, but that we are incredibly toxic, that we live in a highly toxic environment, that we've taxed our body with stress and environmental pollution and food-like substances that aren't actually food. And our body has to like process this absolute crap that it can't even identify every day. And no wonder everything's getting gunked up.
yeah, thanks for that clarification. You hit it. And I've got three boys, and they have friends, and they're not hermits. And they we were walking through the store yesterday, and it was the Super Bowl, and you walk in the store, and you're just blasted with junk, right? I mean, you walk into QFC here, and just bam, immediately junk food, and kids like, oh, candy, and whatever else. And so we walk by, and the kids know I can't stand food coloring. They know I can't stand corn syrup, so they look for the junk that doesn't have that stuff. It's not the junkiest junk, it's just junk. And so he knows also that if you find soda, Sprite or Coca-Cola in glass bottles, it doesn't have corn syrup, it has sugar. And he knows I won't he won't get Coca-Cola because of the caffeine. So he's like, Dad, there's Sprite in glass, it's on sale. Oh God. Fine. So, he got a, and it's not a 2 liter bottle, right? It's just a little
Like
glass bottle.
400 milliliters or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's reasonable. And it wasn't supersized. And then he got some lime-based potato chips. I, know they weren't organic. And so he's sitting at the table drinking the Sprite, eating the chips, and I'm just thinking, and I told him I couldn't help myself. I said, "Your genes, you gave your genes so much work right there. They don't know what the heck you're providing them. They just know that there's like clean up on aisle 6, go and try to fix that, and you're like hurting yourself. But I just try to I let them get it, but I always jab them with it."
I know exactly what you mean. My mom was so overbearing, but now I can look back and really appreciate. I'm a mom now, so I can really appreciate where she was coming from. But we had no junk food in the house. I wasn't allowed any junk food. And so the second I turned 13 and I went to a junior high that had a cafeteria, oh my gosh, I was eating the cookies and the things that I was not allowed at
Hmm.
home. And I just totally rebelled, unfortunately. And then, well, fortunately, because I love who I am now. But I went through a period where I really threw away my health in my 20s, and I spent the my later years, 20s and early 30s, desperately trying to get my health back. And that's what led me to this now. And that's why I'm passionate about holistic health, passionate about
Right.
naturopaths. But that in that rebellious teenage years that I ate, the standard American or standard Canadian diet, I really destroyed my health, and then I have spent my entire adult life so far getting it back. And so I can see that we as parents, it's so difficult because we want to like really make sure they're eating healthy, but at the same time we need to prepare them so that when they're off to college, they're gonna make the best choices they can for themselves because we're not gonna be around to like nag them. So I don't know, my kid's a toddler and I'm already catching myself being my mom, so I need to like figure out how to empower my kid to make those choices. Well, at least your children understand the consequences. I think we all need to understand the consequences because then we can make the best choices. Like if everyone got a massive hangover after eating junk food, we wouldn't do it, right? So,
Hmm.
but now knowing like, hey, I might not feel anything, but I'm setting my genes up so that I die of a heart attack at age 50, knock on wood. Um, if we understood that those are the consequences, then man, we would really be motivated to dive deep into this. And you're right, for only 17 bucks, your book is fantastic, and it is it's that blueprint of perfect health that we can navigate. So I really do appreciate. I can't wait to get your book. By the way, I'm really excited to take the quizzes. There's nothing more exciting than taking a health quiz.
Hmm.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really cool. Um, God, we could talk about this all day, and I'd love to have you back on the show to dive deeper into this discussion because I think that there's just so many things we could discuss. But already today, you've given us a lot of homework to do, to consider the air quality in our home, the air quality when we're cooking, to consider, like for example, our carpets, to think about the probiotics and how that they could decrease the histamine or increase the histamine depending on the quality of the probiotic, to consider removing folic acid because it's man-made from all of our supplements, and any food that is fortified with folic acid we should avoid. To think about the over-the-counter drugs and prescription drugs we're on that could be inhibiting not only our DHFR, but isn't it that over-the-counter drugs affect many of our genes or gunk them up and make them dirty?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the cytochrome P450 is like we mentioned earlier with the antacids, right? So your detoxification routes are jammed.
Mm. Yeah, and that's a big deal. I mean, I'm just thinking about I've had this thing happen to me my whole adult life where every time I go on a diet, I can lose about 25 pounds and then I get really toxic. Like my eyes burn, I make gas that doesn't smell too pleasant, and my
Hmm.
whole body feels like I'm about to have a cold. Like my almost like I get like that feeling you get in your throat like you're about to get sick, and
Yes.
I get the brain fog and everything. And I've gone to so many doctors and explained this to them, and they all have their different theories. And the latest one is heavy metal toxicity. But I've always felt like my phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification, something's gunked up, something's not working right.
Yeah.
And I asked an H about the can you test for this, and she said no, that there's
You
not.
can.
There is, so
Yeah,
there is a
you can.
test that someone
Yes.
can do if they sort of get they feel overly toxic at times in their life. Are there any tests that you recommend we do, and is all that outlined in your book, or can you share it now?
There is a whole appendix in the back on lab testing. And I'm happy to share a couple of thoughts there. And I will say that the appendix is the lab testing is organized by gene. And I tell you which labs to use, or I suggest, excuse me. And I also describe what you might find for that particular lab result, high or low, and what you can possibly do about it. So it's not just here's the lab and good luck. And the lighting of the lab test, I give you some pointers too. So that's really useful. In terms of detoxification, I believe doctors' data looks at hepatic detox, phase 1, phase 2, at least they used to. And then there's also Great Plains Laboratory
Hmm.
has a toxicological, it's called a GPL tox panel, because I can't even say the word. So GPL tox, it's expensive, but it is useful to see how many chemicals are coming out in your pee. It's kind of scary. Um, and I would say that the Great Plains Organic Acids test is a really good test as well, and it's also pee. So it's very simple to do, and you don't have to drive to the doctor's office and get stuck in traffic and yell at the person who cut you off and cause you frustration, which then altered your lab findings if you go into the doctor, right? Because you're
That's
scared of
so funny.
needles.
It's so
Yeah.
funny. I never go to an MD, but I just recently went to one for a physical, and my blood pressure is through the roof. And I've gone to maybe 7 or 8 naturopathic appointments over the last 4 months, and every time my blood pressure is like perfect, like just like it's like 120 over 84 or something. It's like just perfect. And it was so funny that the one time I go to an MD's office, it's just through the roof. But every time I go to a naturopath, it's completely healthy. And it's
Nice.
so true that the stress that getting just think about like choose your doctor that has the least amount of stress getting to and working with, because it can alter the results. I think that is so funny you said that.
Yeah, and I want to share something too for folks that is very gentle, it's relaxing, and it's powerful, is visceral manipulation.
Mm.
And it's very, very amazing if you find a good practitioner. And I'll do a shout out for you actually for a name of a doc. It's Aaron Choi, ARONCHOI, and he is a naturopath and he practices exclusively visceral manipulation. And I would have him, evaluate your digestion area and your liver, because when you're dieting or you're fasting, your gallbladder gets a little bit more thick in terms of bile. It doesn't come out as easily, and that by itself can make you feel more eh. So just tell him that, and he'll do his sensing and whatever he does, and then he'll figure out where he needs to work. But you can tell him to work, suggest that maybe your gallbladder and your liver ligament are tight, but he'll let you know if it is or it isn't.
Oh, that's fascinating. Is there a name for that visceral manipulation technique?
That probably is, but he would have to tell you. I'm not sure. But it's very gentle, and he even taught me how to do my own gallbladder, but I need to have him teach me again. But it's it's uh, it's not easy to do. So having a professional do it is great, and it's super gentle, and it works really well. To be a bit graphic and throw it out there, TMI. Um, you know, I I took I was sick for a while, and I took a bunch of antimicrobials probably about 2 years ago when I was in Hawaii. I just cough that wouldn't go away for like 6 weeks. It was awful. And so one day I just said, screw it. And I just took a bunch of antimicrobials and I just blew up my microbiome.
Wow.
And so then I was constipated. And so that constipation also didn't make me feel good. And I started trying to repair my microbiome, and it just, it was coming back, but it was slow. And I just felt, it's just not good. And so then I said, Aaron, come and fix my gallbladder, man. And so he did, and I was good. That was it. And so, good bowel movements were back, and my gallbladder was just wrecked. So he fixed it.
Wow, I love that. I don't hear that very often about we hear about diet and exercise, but very seldom does someone recommend physical manipulation. And yet, that is definitely a component that we need to keep in mind. I love things like Feldenkrais and Rolfing, incredibly powerful manipulative techniques to releasing the fascia. And I look forward to seeing what Dr. Aaron Choi does specifically. To It says, oh, I'm on his website. Advanced Training in Visceral Manipulation Barrel Institute is where. So I guess you just call it visceral manipulation. I just wanted the listeners to know that, for them to find someone in their area. It has been such a pleasure having you on the show. I could keep you here forever.
Yeah.
I would love to know the smoothie that you make for yourself for like 4 mornings a week. Is that a recipe that you think anyone would benefit from, or do you specifically make a smoothie for your genes?
Well, there's 26 or so recipes in the book, and they're adaptable to how you score in your gene quizzes, which is pretty cool. You usually just get a recipe book and that's it, right? Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
These recipes, I describe how they support each one of your genes on the recipe itself.
Oh,
And if
fun.
if you have certain genes that are dirtier than others, then you should adapt them this way. So it really helps people out there. So that's the only recipe book that I know of that does that. So in terms of me, what I do is I typical, and no, it's not for everyone. I don't think there is anything that's for everyone. I typically do a couple of glasses of goat milk. Or some days I don't want the goat milk. I'll just use water and maybe a little bit of almond milk. Um, and then I have a protein powder formula that I use. It's actually a prenatal powder because it's very comprehensive. It's a prenatal life formulated, so it uses a rice and pea protein. So I use that, and then I use frozen blueberries and frozen raspberries. And then I'll take ground coffee beans, and I'll throw like half a teaspoon of that in there, um, just for flavor. And there's a lot of good antioxidants in coffee beans too. And then I blend it up and drink it, and that's it.
That sounds great. So your prenatal, that's for pregnant moms. You didn't make a formula for babies, right?
No, I'm working on that. It's
Really?
something. Yeah, I've been working on it for about 3, 4, 5 years now.
Great. There's
Yeah,
not
and
enough organic
No.
comprehensive. I think there's only 9 brands in the world that produce an organic baby formula. I did a lot of research. I wasn't able to produce enough breast milk for my son. And so I went totally like into all the research I could find about all the different types of formulas. And it was Weston A. Price Foundation's website that broke down the major ones. And then I finally chose babies only organic, the lacto relief one out of
Hmm.
all of them. And that was the one formula that my son responded well to. But I think that if you could construct a very healthy, clean, organic formula that is healthy for a baby's genes, then you'd be in the money. I would let
Yeah.
everyone know about it.
Well, and I'm working. My next book is going to be on preconception, pregnancy, and infant care, and I'm super. That's what I'm passionate about. I mean, that's my what I love doing, and what I tell people I love doing is optimizing the lives of unborn children. You
Oh,
know, Dirty Genes optimizes lives of people. But my real passion is as a naturopathic physician, as a father of three boys, and my coaching soccer and basketball, and my kids coming, bringing friends over and seeing sick kids, and my kids coming over and pointing out kids, and Dad, can you fix that kid? Can you? It was like, oh,
oh,
it just bites,
yeah,
and so I want to prevent autism. I don't want to
yeah,
treat it. I want to prevent it. And
exactly.
I want to prevent neural tube defects. I want to prevent congenital heart defects. I want to prevent tongue tie. I want to prevent ADHD. I want to prevent dementia. And you can do all of this with the right nutrients during pregnancy and to support her throughout. And the father is also important.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I saw studies where if men um paid attention to their diet and nutrition a year before conception, that
Yes.
there was a significant difference. Isn't that amazing? I love that my podcast, the guests tell the listeners how important the role that food plays, that food can heal, the nutrition can heal, because we're brought up to think that you could eat whatever you want.
No, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. I mean, your genes require food. I mean, it's just dumb. You don't see. Well, uh, yeah, it's not dumb. It's ignorance. It's
Mhm.
lack of understanding, and that's what's really cool about Dirty Genes is it teaches you why you have to eat healthy. It doesn't tell you to eat healthy. It teaches you why.
Yes.
And that's when you know why, you're more inclined to do it. And it's more fun when you understand the science behind why you should eat your leafy green vegetables, you know,
Mhm.
and or why you shouldn't eat too much protein at night if you are stressed out or you have insomnia. Well, why not? Well, because of this. And so people will do that and they'll modify it and they're like, wow, I actually fell asleep well. So there's little
Nice.
simple things like that and are really, really powerful. So yeah, the infant formula is hot on my list. It's I've got it a lot of research behind it already, um, and it's I'm excited. I'm excited where we're going, and I'm excited for Dirty Genes. I know this is going to be a global. It's already a bestseller here in America. It's just flying off the shelves. I mean, it flew off. Amazon ran out of stock. Bookstores are running out. Our publishers scrambling. Amazon sold almost 2,000 copies in one day.
Nice.
It's in the reviews. You read the reviews, and people are excited. I'm excited, and it's going to be one of those perennial sellers that are just always around.
I'm
So
so thrilled.
yeah,
Congratulations. That must have been a lot of hard work.
huh,
I'm seeing I very rarely see books that have 5 stars. You have 75 5-star reviews. It is I've normally you see like 4.5 star, like normally there's a little bit of that star missing. You've got like 100% positive rating from
well
the readers. So
there is
congratulations on that.
yeah, thanks. There is a 3-star one in there, and I read that one, and I was and I really learned a lot,
Mm,
and it because what happens is there's so much misinformation on the
yeah.
internet, and I know we got to wrap this up, but this is an important point. when you read the 3-star reviews, and I really encourage you to do that. So read the 3-star review. Hopefully there's only one, but if there's more, there's going to be more. So read that one and listen to it. As you read it, listen to it, digest it, and then read the other ones. Okay. So it's really important that you do that. And what the person is looking for is an algorithm that is done by stacking up a number of genetic born dirty genes and what vitamins and minerals to take for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think they read the book. They realize that, oh God, I have to do all these lifestyle modifications. I don't just swallow a bunch of pills, and he didn't tell me that
Oh.
I can't do all that. Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So please just get that out of your head. And there's so much misinformation on the internet and Facebook groups and blogs that,
Mm-hmm.
and you read it and it sounds so credible. And you go out and you try to fix that problem with a supplement, or you fix the SNP or the gene with a supplement, but it won't work. So please don't get stuck in that trap, because you'll be stuck there for a few years, and then you'll come back, and then you'll finally sit down and read Dirty Genes all the way through, and you're like, and you'll see results and say, God, why didn't I do this earlier? So health is work. Health is a 4-letter word, and we'll end with that. And you just got to put it in.
Absolutely. Okay, first of all, I got to say that when does your next book come out? The one that you're really excited about?
Yeah. So it's funny, because Wednesday we know if we make the New York Times bestsellers list or not, and
Nice.
I'm crossing my fingers, really crossing my fingers, and because there's a lot of weirdness to that too, and I hope we make it. And so we're waiting on this. We just finished this huge launch, and right away my agent goes, so you got to strike while the iron's hot. Get your next book out. Get your manuscript going. I was like, God, I'm half dead. I'm half dead, and you want me to write another one right now? That I'll be fully dead, fully dead. So it's going to be 2020, and
Nice.
because it takes a year of work and then a year of publishing. So
Sure.
it's 2 years from the time of decision, and that's how Dirty Genes was. And I this the gestation period for this book was, finally having it born and birthed is a relief.
No kidding. Well, pat yourself on the back and go
Yeah,
go to Hawaii, take a vacation.
yeah, I'm going skiing, so
No,
I look forward
okay,
to that.
good. Go skiing and take a vacation and relax. You're gonna get it. We're all gonna buy your book in the next few days in the New York Times bestseller list. You're gonna hit it. Definitely want to have you back on the show for sure. Would love to unpack this more and dive deeper into it, and especially in 2020 when your book comes out, your next book. Want to definitely have you back. My last question is it's I just interviewed Dr. Paul Thomas on the show, who's a pediatrician in
Mm-hmm.
Portland, and he's a great introduction for parents who vaccinate or concerned about vaccine injury, and they want to like know a safer schedule. But by the end of the interview, I'm pretty sure everyone's going to decide not to vaccinate. Looking at all that you've talked about, environmental toxins, you've talked about artificial chemicals like pesticides, over-the-counter drugs and pharmaceutical drugs, and also man-made synthetic vitamins like folic acid, and how all of these things can dirty our genes, can slow down the ability to process nutrients and process toxins. So all of these different chemicals affect the body. What are your views on vaccines, the adjuvants in vaccines like the heavy metals, and their role in affecting our genes?
Well, I'll tell you that Paul and I are really good friends, and I'll also tell you that Paul and I are working on one of the largest registries ever done on vaccines. And I don't know if he brought that up, the PHOI initiative.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, he and I are on that along with Michelle Neasley, and so we're cranking on that. So I am. I'll tell you in this way. I believe that vaccines have a role in certain environments for certain people. Um, But I will also tell you that I firmly believe that vaccines are hurting our kids. They're
Hmm.
hurting pregnant women. They're hurting many, many people, and the flu shots as well, and boys as well with this stupid um, HPV vaccine. Um, and I I don't get why they don't clean them up. I mean, if there is a, like hepatitis B is prevalent, um, and it's not, but let's say it is, and you're concerned about that for your kid. Well, give it to your kid when they're maybe 12, and not when they're just born. That's just stupid. And I will tell you also that any heavy metal will interfere with a plethora of genes. And you can take all the supplements you want, but if you have heavy metals or chemicals on board, you, your genes won't really work well. So, you have to avoid these things. And aluminum interferes with your glutathione, your ability to use glutathione. So you
Mm.
can produce it all you want, but it actually interferes with that too. And then you have heavy metals which interfere with a compound called biopterin, which you need to make basically all your main neurotransmitters in your brain. So here we are, we're striking kids at a young age where they can't produce neurotransmitters because of the aluminum toxicity, and they cannot utilize their glutathione because of aluminum toxicity. Plus, they're already born deficient in glutathione because you look at the labs of these parents with autistic children, and their glutathione levels are low, and it's just a mess. So I am not pro vaccines. Um, I do think they have a place for some people in some environments. Um, I don't think they're all bad, but I think if we do use them, they should be used selectively and they should clean them up as much as they can.
Thank you so much for that answer. And I'm so excited to see all the work that you and Dr. Paul Thomas are putting together. For listeners who haven't checked it out, it's episode 224. And what's really exciting is that you're going to take this a meta analysis of all of your patients over what is it, like 20 years, and be able to show here's every disease that we saw for kids who followed the CDC schedule, who followed an altered schedule, and for kids who didn't do any vaccines. And that's really exciting because it takes doctors like you and your clinics to come together and do these things, because we can't just sit around and wait, because the FDA will never do it for us, the CDC will never do it for us. There's no pharmaceutical company that's ever going to do this for us. They do the minimal amount of testing required just to get out on the market and start making money, and they don't care about the long-term effects. So I'm so thrilled that there's activists and outspoken authors and doctors like yourself who are here to help educate and spread this information. I really appreciate you coming on the show today, and I'd love to have you back on the show. Thank you so much, Dr. Ben Lynch, for coming on, and thank you for writing Dirty Genes. I'm going to buy it the second we get off Skype here. And I recommend that listeners check it out as well. Of course, the links to that and everything you do and your website will be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntrailhealth.com.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Ashley.
Enjoy what you heard today on your episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Did something move you, inspire you? Did you get great information that's going to change your life? Awesome. That's exactly what I'm here to do, is to help you gain your health back. Please turn around and share this. If this is something that's helped you in any way, share this with those you love. Love the Learn True Health podcast and want to support us? Awesome. You can go to takeyoursupplements.com and you can support us that way. You'll get access to amazing supplements that are just really great quality for a great price. And there'll be someone on the other end of the line to help you pick out your supplements that are right for you. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Or join our membership, learntruehealth.com/join. That's another great way to support our podcast, support our movement, and you'll be supporting yourself. Gain more information, wonderful videos, wonderful trainings, and you'll also be able to share those with those you love as well. So go to learntruehealth.com/join. Want something fun for free? Go to learntruehealth.com, and right there on the front page, you'll see where you can get our free cookbook. I spent a lot of time making it, and it was so much fun. It's really delicious, healthy recipes. And you can also get our 7-day doctor course. Right there, it's 7 days of naturopathic videos sent right to your inbox, and you can learn from top naturopaths on how to gain health naturally. So that's takeyoursupplements.com for wonderful supplements. learntruehealth.com/join to join our awesome membership, which is only open for a limited time. You can get our free healthy cookbook, and you can also get for free 7 days of wonderful naturopathic videos sent to you. Just go to learntruehealth.com and you'll see it right there on the front page. Thank you so much for being a listener, and thank you for sharing and helping others. Let's spread this information and turn this ripple into a tidal wave.